Hey everybody, it's Michael with Keller Williams Real Estate. I'm here with Brittany.
Hi, and DeEtte.
DeEtte, you're with Comparion Insurance. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
You know, I wanted to have a chat with you and understand what's going on with the insurance industry, because I'm getting a lot of clients reach out to me and they're like, I'm hearing all these stories about insurance rates going up 30%, 50%, and they're freaking out. They're like, hey, is my homeowner's insurance about to skyrocket? So why don't you tell us about what's going on in the industry?
Well, industry-wide, definitely property is over auto. And it is, insurance is more unfavorable, and it is likely to continue through 2024. The reason for that is all the catastrophic events we are seeing worldwide. It's affecting rates. And in Colorado, we have a history of hail. This year, we've had over 13 hailstorms within
and the Marshall fires.
In the year, the Marshall fires. Yeah. And I guarantee what we are seeing in Hawaii is going to affect all of us. So they didn't take a big rate increase 2 years ago. Everyone kind of held back. And so as we got into this year, we saw rates, they had to double that increase. So we've seen rates go up substantially with all carriers. My recommendation to anyone that's a homeowner, anyone that is looking to buy a home, is to sit down and actually have a solid review with a licensed agent and make sure that your coverages are where they need to be. Make sure that your home protection, which is your dwelling replacement cost, is where it needs to be, so we don't have another issue like we did hearing that people were underinsured during the Marshall fires. People were underinsured due to other reasons. They didn't do reviews, they did their policy online. Those are some things that the general public can do to help reduce the rate, is doing a review. Something else that we are seeing as well in Colorado is we gone are the days of the $1,000 wind hail deductible for your roof. We are seeing wind hail deductibles. There's a few carriers I have where I can still possibly get $2,500, but we are seeing typically $5,000 minimum or 1% of the dwelling replacement.
So on new policies. New written policies.
New written policies. So those people sitting in an old policy with $1,000 deductible, hang on to that as long as possible, but make sure your other coverages are up to date.
So you can update your coverages like that. I feel like that's a question that you can update your coverages without changing your deductible. Like if you're locked in on a, this $1,000 roof and hail deductible, but you need to change your coverages, are they going to automatically try to switch over your deductible then?
So your wind hail deductible sometimes is based on your dwelling replacement cost on your policy.
Okay.
So let's just use an easy number. Let's say your dwelling replacement is $500,000. And you have a 1% dwelling replacement. That's going to be a $5,000 wind hail deductible. If your home dwelling replacement has to be increased because of the times, I mean, look at Colorado home prices right now. If the replacement cost is $650,000, you're going to see that wind hail deductible go up to $6,500. You can always change coverages throughout the year. I mean, once you've signed it, you can change. You can always change your coverages, and it's important to review.
I feel like so many people just don't understand. They don't understand. It's like it's hard to get people to talk or listen about their insurance. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I run away from that. You don't. You're a rule follower.
How exciting is it to read about insurance, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's not super exciting. But when
I think it's just it's a fear-based thing too, right? People are so excited to talk about real estate because it's something that they're like, oh, it's exciting to buy a new home. Insurance stuff is it's about the bad. It's the stuff that you don't want to think about,
right?
Until you have to think about it, and then by the time you have to, you don't have the right insurance. So it's like, it is important to talk about it. And even people who know.
Absolutely.
Don't do
and
it.
I mean, and talking with an agent provides you with knowledge. I mean, it fills in gaps where people had no idea what they were even paying for or what it meant. The thing about Comparion Insurance Agency is we have 22 carriers. So I have the ability to get somebody who is possibly in a mountain home that can't get coverage. I've got options for them. I have options for someone who is a landlord and has multiple policies. I have some carriers that have some very good rates and discounts for having those multiple homes together.
See, I think that's something that, the consumer out there really doesn't realize, right? A lot of consumers are like, they're used to the Allstates and the State Farms and the American Families of the world. And what they don't realize is those companies are captive companies. So when you go to an Allstate, you're getting an Allstate policy.
Right.
Whereas here, you're able to shop for them and get them the best deal out there.
Well, and I think,
Comparion is a Liberty Mutual company. Did we say that? We didn't say that, I don't think, when we introduced you. But that means it's like, even if people haven't heard of Comparion, I feel like that name, Liberty Mutual, they have heard of, just like they've heard of Allstate and State Farm.
right.
But that Liberty Mutual is not a captive company
Well, and a little
is
background on
a
that
pretty big deal.
is Liberty Mutual Insurance was able to gain partnerships with all these carriers.
Mhm.
And as we got bigger and bigger, they've put all of us agents in Comparion. So we can help more people, and we have access to more carriers, and we have more options. We are one-stop shopping.
Mhm.
And so for the consumer that is, thinks that shopping for insurance is extremely painful, and they don't even know the right questions to ask or what to look for online, please don't ever go online and shop your insurance. Just promise me you'll never do that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us about that? What's the problem with going, like my neighbor just went online and shopped for insurance. What are your concerns, for a consumer to just go out there and get a
They
quote
just click
online?
around and try to get the lowest bottom line that they can, and they don't have any
So
clue what it means.
it would be like a home buyer, home seller, just getting online and buying something without anybody involved.
Asking Zillow.
Right? But when people go online, insurance is complicated. It's why I'm a licensed agent. I'm licensed, and I pride myself in consulting with my clients, and I pride myself in knowing my products and knowing the industry and understanding the coverages. And so when people go online, people don't know what uninsured motorist liability coverage is. 9 out of 10 people, I would guess 10 out of 10 that I could ask would have no idea what that is. When I ask somebody if they need coverage on their home for water backup, they have no idea what that means. And maybe some 1-800 number put on there for them to pad their premium, but it may be something that isn't necessary for them, that they don't even know what that covers. So going online, it lacks, there's no knowledge there.
It's like trying to sell your house for subway owner.
Yeah, I mean, people
DIY projects.
People just don't have the knowledge of all the ins and outs of insurance. And there's additional coverages you can get that with the 22 carriers I have, each carrier has some different what we call endorsements, like seepage, which has been a big deal in Colorado this year.
What is it called?
Seepage.
What is that?
So seepage.
Seepage.
I thought you said sea bitch. Like, oh, okay.
Seepage.
Okay.
Seepage.
Is that an acronym?
Water backup.
Seepage. Seep edge. Okay.
Water was a big deal in Colorado this year, right?
Yes.
I mean, the million phone calls I got, hey, I have water coming in through my windows, is that on my policy?
Mm-hmm.
Flood is not covered on a general policy, ever. And so seepage is, and people are confused about what this is, it's when...
I didn't even realize there was a difference. I always thought, that's flood insurance. And yeah, that water coming through your basement window well, you're just screwed.
Sea bitch.
So you can get
So that's
seepage
not, but that's not seepage
coverage.
either. So what
Oh,
seepage, no, what seepage
That's
is...
what they say when
People don't
sea
understand.
bitch. I told
Yeah.
you should have called me before. Anyway.
Seepage is if you have that water pipe from it's probably not a pipe, it's probably if you have like water, something connected through your refrigerator or something behind a wall of a toilet or a sink and it's dripping for,
Like if it's a plumbing issue.
well,
versus
it's causing a water issue. It's causing mold and it's causing, but you don't find
like
out
the
about it.
slow burn, slow drip type
Yes.
things. It's just seeping. It's
Seeping
not,
into
yeah.
something and then all of a sudden you discover you have all this damage. That's
Mm-hmm.
seepage. Water backup, I mean, these aren't really fun topics to talk about, but water backup is other people's sewage or sewage within your house that backs up. But if you have a septic system, it's not covered because you're not coming off of a mainline city.
Really?
Yeah. So people that, like when I get policies, sometimes people have water backup and they're on a septic system. And I'm like, this is coverage
You don't even need to
you
pay
can't even
for it.
access. So in a flood policy, you can get a flood policy even if you're not in a flood zone. But a flood, to be a true flood, water has to cover 2 acres of land and at least apply to 2 properties, 2 homes. So you know, if your window wells flood and you call and you say, I want to utilize my flood coverage, it's, unless it affected 2 acres of land or somebody else's property around you, you still won't be able to access it.
And the difference, I think, I didn't realize for a really long time, you reminded me, and I don't think a lot of people do, is if you make a homeowner's insurance claim, like whether it's your fault or not, it's not the same as auto insurance, where like a hail damage claim, they can't up your rate based on a hail damage claim because it's not an at-fault incident. But on homeowners insurance, it doesn't work like that. It's like, oh, yeah, we're here for the disaster, but if you filed a claim for the disaster, whether it was your fault or not, now we can up your rates. Isn't that right?
Well, we call it a surcharge. And
they can surcharge it.
it's surcharged. And so if you have a hail claim, most companies are going to surcharge that.
Mm-hmm.
Liberty Mutual Insurance, one of our carriers, they are the only carrier I have that will forgive the first hail claim. So there's not
like accident forgiveness.
Well, I've had residents in Colorado that have had 2 claims in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that having that hail forgiveness with Liberty is great. And carriers have gotten really strict about that in the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
So claims, when I look at someone's claims history and I see that they filed a $650 claim and their deductible's $1,000, it's upsetting to me. Why didn't you call me first or call your agent first?
Right.
I mean, we're not claims experts, right? I'm not licensed in claims.
Mm-hmm.
But I can at least advise, hey, you should probably have a contractor come and look at that, see what the cost is going to be, and
Right.
weigh out what's a better way to go.
Right.
Don't put a claim in for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance is not designed for everyone to put a claim in for everything, for your mountain bike to be stolen off your front porch.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance is designed for catastrophic events.
Mm-hmm.
And we obviously have experienced in Colorado some of those catastrophic events in the last couple years. So insurance is not designed to have anything that goes wrong come in and cover it. And in Colorado, because of hail, we have a lot of a lot of companies that go around checking people's roofs. And sometimes it's an honest bid and sometimes it isn't. And so we're constantly putting roofs on that in some cases may not need to be going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the consumer needs to be cognizant that you don't put a claim in for everything. It increases your rate. You don't have insurance just to cover that toolbox that got stolen out of your garage because you neglected to lock it or you left it out in sight. So theft claims affect your rate. Loss of jewelry affects your rate. If you have jewelry that's scheduled on your policy you lose something or it gets stolen, it affects your rate. So we do have the ability now with all of our carriers, though I never put jewelry on a home policy anymore. I put it on a standalone policy. It costs about the same and it does not affect your claims history and there's no deductible. So,
And you wouldn't know that if you went and did your own thing online.
No.
You wouldn't understand why. And these are just some examples. So it's not like now just because somebody heard you talking about it today, they can go do it online.
right.
Because there's so much more to it.
Well, there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot to it. And again, I go back to that's why I'm licensed. I do this every day.
Yeah.
And my job is to look out for people. It's to make them, if something happens, I'm there to make them whole again. I'm not there to have an angry customer calling me about some coverage that they didn't put on their policy when they did it online. I mean, my job is to make sure my clients are taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's not going to be anything that leaves them out of pocket, so to speak.
So I know you and I were talking before, and you said some insurance companies now, they have a waiting period before they'll bind coverage.
So we have seen that recently. We've seen it since about in the last month and a half. So it's called a pre-bind pause. We've seen it with some of our carriers, especially in Colorado. We're seeing it in some of the zip codes that have been heavily hit by hail more than once this year, houses that are now up in what's considered wildfire or brush fire. We're seeing that pre-bind pause. And so that just means that underwriting wants to look at it a little more closely, and they will let me know in 7 days. So it doesn't necessarily mean the quote is going to change, the price is going to change, but in 7 days, they may just come back and say, no, sorry, we can't insure this property. Or they're going to come back with a list of hoops that someone needs to jump through that I need to supply the underwriter with in order for that coverage to go into place. And it's usually pretty lengthy, and it can be, frustrating for the consumer to have to supply all this information. But their underwriting has gotten really strict, and we're having carriers move out of states. Allstate and State Farm have moved out of California. Hippo is no longer writing business in Colorado for homes, but they're just a home carrier anyway. So the industry right now it's being wary of what kind of risk they're going to take on. So yes, it's not as easy to get insurance. I have had several people in the last month come to me, and one example is somebody had 3 claims. I couldn't get any carrier to pick them up.
Really?
And his insurance rate with his current carrier is $12,000 for the year. Because he has 3 claims, because he put this person just, for whatever reason, had an abundance of claims, being surcharged for
So
it.
now he's high risk.
He's high risk.
Yeah, you're gonna take advantage of the system is kind of probably the way that
And
they're
I don't,
looking
yeah,
at it.
I mean, every carrier looks at risk differently. I can't, speak to every carrier, but things that fall into high risk, if someone's had several theft claims, you can see that, well, they obviously live in a bad part of town, or they don't lock their things up, or that with some carriers, they would probably look at that as high risk for whatever reason. If you live in a zone that's been hit by hailstorms, they have a record of every hailstorm that happens. That may put you in high risk. Rates for homes and wind hail deductibles on the western slope are phenomenal. Doing business over there is super simple. But right now in the Front Range, underwriting has gotten really strict. It's important that consumers really understand their policies and make sure they have the correct coverages, and do understand how it works when you have a claim, how that affects your insurance. And the other thing we're able to do, adjust premiums so it helps people qualify for their loans. So we can help, maybe we have to increase deductibles. We still want them to obviously have full coverage. I know it's gotten hard for many people right now to even qualify for a loan, and insurance falls into that. And so we can work with that policy to get it to a rate that is acceptable to get the loan through.
I want to go back to the pause of the binding. What'd you call it again?
Pre-bind pause.
Pre-bind pause. I think it's important to talk about a little bit, especially in a real estate transaction, where if you're getting ready to close on a home, and then let's say you're closing in 2 days, and they put this pause on there, and it's 7 days. Well, you're going to have to go find different insurance because you're not going to have insurance in time for closing.
Right. And so it's important to get on top of your insurance as soon as you're going to be buying a home. It's really important to start shopping that insurance right away.
Well, go ahead.
If there's some sort of some hiccup with the home, not from an inspection standpoint, but possibly an old roof, that could cause us to not be able to find you a policy. It can be rejected with many companies because the roof is too old.
Right. It might not even necessarily have any problems, but just because it's not a new roof or not built within a certain period of time, it's going to cause a problem for them to get their policy.
Like a 20-year-old roof,
yeah.
I'm going to be hard pressed to find them a policy anywhere. I do have a company, I may be able to find it, but it's going to be really expensive.
Yep.
And so that's where I know Brittany and I have been in situations like that before, and she's gone to bat for her client, and a new roof is put on by the seller.
Right.
And then I am able to get them a really good rate, and they're moving into a home with a new roof. I mean, she did them a great service.
Right. Even when the market was crazy and it was like nobody could pull one over on the sellers. We got roofs replaced left and right before they closed.
Right.
Well, that was what I was going to say too. I was like making some notes actually along the lines of what you mentioned, Michael, was when you're, as a real estate agent, even when you're going to have the listing, if it's a listing consultation, these people are going to sell their home and they're going to buy a new one. It's like, are they gonna end up in a situation where they're not insurable now after they've sold their house and then they're looking to buy a new one, but they filed so
Yeah,
many claims on their
that's a good
previous
point.
house? Even out of state, I know we talked about this before, even out of state, somebody in Oregon, filed all these claims, moves to Colorado ready to buy their new house, and they can't even get
They're
a
uninsurable.
homeowner's in policy. Now they've sold their asset, can't even get a new one.
I think that's a great point. I think a lot of times real estate agents, when we're working with sellers, we go to, hey, let's make sure you qualify to buy what you want to buy
Right.
before you sell your existing home. But yeah, I think with the current,
Have that conversation on insurance.
yeah, you should, I don't think a lot of agents do.
They don't, but that's what I'm saying. So we talk about being the full fee agent, the full service agent that earns their commission rather than other companies, other brokerages we don't have to mention that take, a flat rate or reduced fee. Agents who give the full service that, you from start to finish, you get to counsel your client to, we're not gonna try to be the insurance expert, but we're gonna try to set them up with somebody
Right.
like DeEtte who knows their stuff, that's well, let's look at everything, let's look at the full picture, because if you just got a job and you're relocating across the country, you might be renting.
Well, and just because
You know?
I'm reviewing someone's insurance, it's always worth a review. It doesn't mean I'm going to sell them a policy. If they're sitting in a good policy, I'm going to tell them, stay where you are.
Right.
Um,
Right, which is exactly, we have to, again, that's why we're the experts working in the best interest of our clients, all of us in our different fields. We
Yes,
just had Nathan in
absolutely.
here talking about the same type of situation, and people trying to do the WebMD type situation, or the buy your insurance policy online, or the for sale by owner. It's kind of all the same thing. Don't ask your lawyer about your doctor stuff, don't ask your doctor about your real estate needs, don't, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Well, and something else that ties into it is auto insurance. And it sounds, when I talk to people about their home, I also talk to them about their auto. And they say, well, I don't want to do that right now. I just want to get this home situated. And it's really important that we do them together. And the reason it's important, one, is the multi-policy discount hits heavier on the home. It can be up to 25% if we bundle home and auto together. And then the other thing that's really important is liability coverage. And for the state of Colorado, the minimum liability coverage is $25.50, meaning if you were to be liable for an accident, people were injured, it would cover $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident. And if you've ever been in the ER room for anything, you know that $25,000 can go really fast. So let's say that person that you hit, that you caused the accident, they had minimal insurance themselves, and their medical bills are hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're gonna come back after you and say, you need to pay for this. And the first thing that somebody's going to go after is your home, your assets.
Yep.
And so it's really important that people understand that coverage. And I can't tell you how many times I get people sending over their declarations pages. They're living in an $850,000 home, and they have $2,550 or $5,100 in liability coverage. And I'm horrified. And they have what's considered youthful drivers, teen drivers, which are risk.
And
Um,
$25.50, I only know this because I got into a car accident a while ago. It was whole. But so $25.50 means $25,000 per person, up to $50,000 for that accident, right?
Correct.
And then
Yes.
$5,100 is the same, $50,000 per person, up to $100,000. So if you drive a Suburban and you have a family of 17, however many kids you have, whatever, there's 8 people in the car, the insurance only covers up to $100,000 and only $50,000 per person, right? How does that
Well, exactly, which is why you should have
know your coverage?
Know your coverages. So if you're hit by an uninsured motorist, that's another liability coverage. On your policy, you see uninsured motorist liability coverage, which is a whole nother conversation. But that covers you for your medical bills if you're injured in an accident hit by an uninsured motorist. Some people have opted to lower that because they have good health insurance. So some of my clients say, you know what, I'm gonna lower it, I have good health insurance. The other thing it covers is loss of wages. So if you're retired, you're going to be on Medicare, and maybe that coverage is not as important to you because you know you have Medicare and you can't access loss of wages because you're not working. So it's an area where you could bring that rate on the auto policy down. Do I recommend it all the time? No. But for people that are really trying to work out a budget, and they've got excellent healthcare coverage, it's an option for them.
Yeah, I think that liability thing's huge. I mean, you go wreck a $100,000 Mercedes and you've got 50 grand worth of coverage. I mean, you've got a problem.
And that falls into personal property coverage. So it would be, the liability is only for injuries, your personal liability coverage, and then on your policy you'll see personal property. Personal property is if you wreck someone else's car. And 9 times out of 10, I see 25,000 or 50,000, which is not
a lot of vehicles.
does not cover. I insure $85,000, $99,000 vehicles every day. Having that low coverage, personal property coverage, people just are like, meh, someone else will pay for it, or I'll worry about it when it happens. And then it happens, and they're on the phone with you. How come I don't have this coverage? So it's really important to have those conversations with your insurance agent and to try to educate yourself so you're not in that situation.
So what last words of wisdom do you have for us?
We keep hearing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, so we'll probably see that in 2024. Cross your fingers that we don't have any more catastrophic events worldwide, that we hopefully have seen what we've seen and we're heading in a better direction. I think it's really important to for clients to be educated and to take the time to find a person that they trust that can educate them about their insurance and do a review and have complete coverage in the event that you need it.
And so if somebody is watching this video and wants to get a hold of you to do a consult with you, how do they do that?
They can reach me on my phone. They can reach me online. My name is DeEtte Kozlow with Comparion Insurance Agency. So I do have a website. I'm also on LinkedIn. And they can call Keller Williams here, and Keller Williams can get me in touch with them.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pleasure.